Hello friends, welcome back. It's great to see you. Today, I'd like to cover a Steam achievement called Born with the Talent. As you can see here, we're just about to build a soul relic and it's day 45. The challenge requires that you do this in 50 in-game days. In this video, I want to condense 6 live streams worth of content, which by the way, I'm live weekdays on Twitch and YouTube. We're going to compress all of that knowledge, all of that learning and experience into this video. I want to cover the process, my strategy, how I made money, where I put my skill points, the order in which I built things, and give you a full factory tour of both the actual in-game save that you see here and my research and development lab in my sandbox save. So, without any further ado, let's get into it, and I want you to be able to complete Born with the Talent. So to start with, this is my factory. It's really 2 stories. It's got a little bit on the 3rd story and a giant tower at the top for thermal extractors so that I can really take advantage of building basic liquids. Let's start by talking early game, the first 3 to 4 tiers of the game, where I'm really just rushing towards advanced fertilizer. If I open my skills here, at the time I put all my points in customer management because really the only strong way that you can make money in the early game, in my opinion, is through mailbox quests. So I put it into quest management, I'd visit the mailbox, we'd build all these little basic components here, things like pulleys, glass, clay, brick. Over here we have a machine making bandages. Over here we have a little machine making vitality potions. You get the drift, right? These little handmade cheap machines. We're not using a lot of nails. We're not using any steel. It's basically just a lot of wood and hand-fed components. The little black boxes indicate where I need to insert the inputs like advanced fertilizer, and the red boxes indicate where the outputs come. And so we're just doing this game of building the machines necessary to progress through tier 2, 3, and 4, putting points into quests, turning in quests, and trying to rush as fast as we can towards advanced fertilizer. You can see I have a machine over here making advanced fertilizer. It's all very basic. I'm not looking for high verticality. I'm not looking to spend a lot of money on the resources. I just want to go as quickly as I can into advanced fertilizer so that I can progress to the next phase of the plan. With advanced fertilizer out of the way and the ability to make dispatch portals, so at this point we're at tier 4, the next step was to create bandages at a scale where I could start dispatching them. So you can see this machine here, which was also fully covered in my dispatch portal video, which I'll link in the description. Highly recommend checking that out because you can get the blueprint for this and all the other dispatch machines you see in this walkthrough from that video. So we built the bandages. This will provide about half of the daily allotment for your bandage dispatch portal. The idea here is that we can take these 2 assemblers making bandages, feed it into a dispatch portal, change the money into 1 silver coin increments, and then loop that money around so that we're buying things like rotten logs and all the other components to make advanced fertilizer. And then back here, we're sending the advanced fertilizer back into the machines that are making the bandages. And that's the loop. It's a closed loop. And it just makes money. We come here to this green box, we grab any profits that we need on a day-to-day basis, and we can use that to hand feed other machines because we really can't afford to put everything on a coin belt just yet. We want to be a little choosy with how we spend our money in the early tier 4 and tier 5 portions of the game. With profits rolling in from the dispatch portals, I realized that I'd kind of made a mistake by having all those little hand-fed machines over to the side because I need things like planks and wooden gears and stone, and it was kind of annoying to have to hand feed all those individual machines. So I made a quick pivot and I generated this mini mall. Nothing much fancy going over here. We just have a little hand-fed coin box here, feeding machines that produce our planks and our wooden gears, our stone, iron and iron nails, some steel gears, and some glass. If I were to do this again, I'd probably just make this as my initial design and slowly put it all together as I unlock the components like glass and steel and whatnot. But that was a learning moment. The nice thing about this is now I can go over and grab any of those components that I need, and I actually started selling some of the excess just to get a little bit of profits out of it. With the mini mall done, let's go upstairs and talk about growth potions, which are over here, located in the back right corner of the factory. Growth potions are tier 6, which means we have access to bronze and cauldrons and a lot of the key things that we need to start making in order to really snowball the game, or where our progression reinforces itself. The transition to growth potions is we want to reset our skills and get out of quest management. So remove all the points out of custom management, and start putting those points into the fertilizer efficiency. My strategy at this point was to put 7 points into the fertilizer efficiency skill, start cranking out as much bronze as I can using the standard method of building bronze, where you're essentially washing iron sand, and start getting cauldron production online. You can see here, this is my standard growth potion machine. We use a cauldron of clay, which is red currant, sage, and sage powder. We lead that clay into another cauldron, creating sage, flax, and clay. That produces coke, which we grind into coke powder. That's our power source for this machine, so a plant-based power source. And then we've got 4 cauldrons across these 2 machines, creating more of the clay, exact same recipe, turning that into clay powder. And then 2 more machines here, both with 2 cauldrons each, creating salt. That's flax, chamomile, and flax fiber. So everything that we need to create the brine, leading all of that plus some ground up chamomile powder right here into our growth potion advanced blender. All of the excess comes out the other side of the priority splitter and goes to another growth potion machine. And that's the snowball. Now we have another growth potion machine, identical in construction with the first. It's taking growth potion that's extra from the first machine and using it along with a little bit of advanced fertilizer. It's difficult to get the entire machine going with just growth potion initially. So we mixed a little advanced fertilizer with growth potion. We get the second machine going. And we do the same for the third machine. And by this point, we're starting to make a lot of growth potion. We basically have half a belt of growth potion coming through these priority splitters. And so it becomes easier and easier to get this one online, and our 4th growth potion machine online, our 5th, and our final and 6th growth potion machine. All of that growth potion is coming down the line, constantly being priority split until we get to the last splitter, and then we can start spending it on the next phase of the plan. I do want to stress that 7 points in fertilizer is very key for this piece of the strategy, because then less than half of the growth potions that we produce go back into the machines to keep them alive, and a little over half comes to us as profit or free growth potion. It means that this entire section of the factory is self-operated, requires no money or other inputs to maintain, and just gives us free growth potion, and we need that to continue. The growth potion hits another priority splitter, and we send that down the line to all of these machines. All of these machines that you see here are using that one line of growth potion over and over and over again. We're just sending it from machine to machine, all the way across the front side of the factory. And that's why it's such a key piece of the strategy. We need all this growth potion. Let me show you what it's doing. The first machine in the line is an additional bandage machine. This means we're now fully maxing out on the daily quantity that can be dispatched, and so we're maxing out the money that we can possibly make on bandages. Next to that, we have multiple machines making Gloom Spores, and for Gloom Spores, we're using lavender, chamomile powder, and chamomile. This is enough to also completely max out the daily quantity that can be dispatched of Gloom Spores. And again, we want to do that because we want to maximize our profits and make every penny that we can on dispatch portals. Next to Gloom Spores, we have impure copper powder being generated for bronze, because you're going to need a lot of bronze to create all these cauldrons, and making it the other way with soap powder and iron sand isn't super fun. So this we're using flax, flax fiber, and lavender. With healthy profits rolling in from these dispatch portals, it's time to make the next thing to dispatch, our friend, the pocket watch. We're running 2 advanced assemblers of pocket watches, but they're only ratioed to operate at about 1 1/3 at a time. Quick tour here, we've got copper coins being turned into ingots and then processed into bearings. We've got 4 kilns turning sand into glass. We've got 4 cauldron stacks turning plants into coke for coke powder. That's the same recipe I showed you earlier, where it's the sage, sage powder, and red currant making clay. And then we're turning that clay, sage, and flax into coke, grinding it into coke powder. So that's where we're getting our coke powder from, plus 2 smelters turning the iron into iron ingots, and 4 athanors turning all of that into steel, along with a stack of processors here turning those into gears. Additionally, I later on wanted a stronger power source, so we have black powder being generated here with 2 red currant and 1 lavender. That's powering everything you see in this row, plus it's being sent to other places to share the production. With growth potions turned in, we complete tier 6 and we move on to tier 7, which is blast potions. To make blast potions, this is my machine. I've got a set of cauldrons here turning silver coins and 2 planks into Oblivion Essence because it's way less fuel and planks are cheap. These silver coins are coming from the dispatch portals over here, so our Bandage and Gloom Spore silver coins are being turned into single stacks. And then we got this little belt here, sending the profits into my friend here so that it goes in the cauldron. I will note that this will stack to 5,000 silver coins across both cauldrons, so every once in a while I would just scoop out the extra profits and use them and then replace it with a small amount of coins. You can do that. You can hand feed these machines, but there's so many things to kind of worry about while you're running around building things, trying to complete the 50-day challenge, that I figured it'd be easier to just let the coins go into the cauldrons, and then when I need money, I can grab it, than have one more thing to have to remember to constantly feed this machine. Now for the brandy, we're going to take a little trip to the back of the factory, and we're going to go up all these stairs to my thermal extraction floor. And I kind of built this over time. Just when I had spare time, I would build some stairs, build some platforms, build the walls going up. I was trying to avoid using steel, so everything is just clay walls. But the idea was, let's get the fruit wine online and start building brandy production enough to power the blast potions. I also knew that later on I would need brandy for the aqua vitae, and so I just planned out how much fruit wine I would need using the thermal extractors, how much brandy I would need. Not enough to really saturate those machines, but enough to let them trickle and remain on long enough to produce blast potions and the aqua vitae. Welcome to my thermal extraction floor. We have a lift going all the way to the bottom to provide growth potions that come up, move down this belt, come into this little buffer box, and feed all of these machines. The end state of my thermal extraction floor is 2 double stacks of cauldrons creating black powder. And again, my recipe is double red currant and lavender. So this is all the power for all of our furnaces on this floor. We have 2 machines making brandy, and so that's a full belt of coke powder leading into a brandy alembic that is being fed by fruit wine over here. We've got a little 6 thermal extractor fruit wine. This is what I started with. It's probably the first machine that I built up here, just building enough fruit wine to get me started, along with a brine machine just to supplement how much brine I was generating below. There's things that need brine like the sulfuric acid. And then my later game thermal extractor with 18 thermal extractors for fruit wine to power all the rest of the brandy that you see here, as well as I built some additional brandy machines downstairs. Finally, we have this single machine here. It doesn't do anything anymore, but this is where I generated my fairy tears, because yes, you can get the thermal extraction bonus for fairy tears, which means you produce 1/3 as much fairy dust as you would need otherwise. Coming down the stairs from my thermal extraction floor, you can see the final 2 brandy machines that I created here. Really, I didn't make these until I started generating aqua vitae because I started needing a lot of brandy. So you don't need to build these kind of early game. The blast potions don't need that much, but you will need it for the aqua vitae. With the brandy flowing, the blast potions are producing, and we have a little box here capturing 2 stacks of blast potions. This means a couple things. One, it's time to start making Venus relics for XP, because we need a lot of skill points. Now we could make Jupiter's or Mars or something like that, but I feel like Venus is really easy to make. It just takes potions, and the majority of the potions we can make for free. So I have my Venus relic shaper here, as well as the knowledge altar to eat up the Venus relics. You can see my next skill point is 634 points. So we used a number of Venus relics, I think about 3, to boost the number of skill points that we had. In order to make the sulfuric acid, I'm just chewing up some sulfur powder using cauldrons and the brine you saw me making upstairs. So here's my cauldron generating the sulfur. We're using chamomile, flax, and lavender, just so we can make these using nothing but fertilization, grinding those up, sending it to sulfuric acid, and then pumping that directly into this machine. To support both my crafting needs and the Venus potions, we have some cauldrons and machines over here being fed by fertilizer and plants. So we're making clay and brick so that we can support nursery generation as well as building. We have a machine here making healing potions. We have a cauldron here creating copper powder out of impure copper powder, flax, and lavender, really so that I can supply my Mars with some bearings and also myself with some bearings for building. We've got rope being generated, really for building. We've got vitality potions being created, and this is the only thing that requires money. We need rocks to be ground down into lime powder. And then we've got a machine here making transformation potions out of the coke powder and the gloom spores. So all of these potions being generated so that I can hand feed them into the Venus machine. I also want to point out that the scale of these machines are really small. They're not meant to fill up a belt or produce a massive amount of product. It's a trickle method. I only produced a Venus every day or so. I wasn't trying to max out how fast they came out. I just wanted to always have one cooking, and each time I would take it and put it into the knowledge altar to turn into skill points. I took all those additional skill points and put them into fertilizer, going for 15 points of fertilizer because it's time to build Growth Potion's bigger brother, the Fertile Catalyst. The way I constructed the Fertile Catalyst machines is almost identical in the theory behind the Growth Potion machines. You create all the components for Fertile Catalyst here, pump them into the advanced blenders, send that Fertile Catalyst down the line, send a priority splitter to make sure that Fertile Catalyst is feeding the machines, creating the lavender oil and the vitality essence and the unstable catalyst. Any leftovers go to the next machine, and so on and so forth, where we're snowballing Fertile Catalyst so that by the time we get to this last machine, it's really, really simple because we have this strong line of Fertile Catalyst feeding this machine and going to the last priority splitter. Now, while these Fertile Catalyst machines come online and start gathering steam and snowballing, it's important to go ahead and get your second pocket watch machine cooking. I put mine upstairs. This is the exact same construction, the exact same blueprint as what you saw downstairs. We're running about 1 1/3 additional advanced assemblers, pumping out pocket watches, and this is really to accelerate the speed at which we fulfill the dispatch portal so that we can unlock the Fertile Catalyst dispatch portal. Once the dispatch of Fertile Catalyst is unlocked, now we've got all this extra Fertile Catalyst backing up, which means we have additional free Fertile Catalyst that we can use. I'm just taking a priority splitter, grabbing that extra, and putting those into a dispatch portal. And with these 3 machines producing and more Fertile Catalyst coming into this dispatch portal, we're basically able to fill it up every day. This is where we start to make really big profits. When we're not dispatching Fertile Catalyst, we're also using it for heavy fertilizer intensive resources like our gentian plants that we need for making aqua vitae and our world tree. Hi Gus, it's good to see you again. And so we're tending those resources into an advanced alembic. We're using the gentian nectar. We're using the world tree leaves. We're using that additional brandy. Again, it's right here. We brought that online to support the aqua vitae generation. Because guess what? All of that's going into an advanced blender to make panacea potions. So we need the Fertile Catalyst. We need those blast potions from the other side. We need that aqua vitae. Panacea potion is really the last potion that we need. And it also benefits from our huge fertilizer efficiency gains. This is also a good time to start checking on the mailbox every day to see maybe you have an urgent quest. In my save, I had a request for Panacea Potion and it was urgent. And so I took that opportunity to go into my skills and go back into customer management. I put every point I could into quest rewards. I then turned in that Panacea urgent quest. And instead of getting 10 gold for it, I got almost 100 gold, which is huge. 100 gold is a lot of money. So keep an eyeball on the mailbox towards the end of the game. Look for those urgent quests. And if you find one that's worth 5 or 10 or 20 gold or something like that, and you can fulfill it, put the points into the customer management, get that quest bonus, turn it in. It's worth it because the respec cost is going to be less than the massive amount of profits that you earn from the mailbox. It's happening! Wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. So you have Panacea potions. That's the last step for tier 8. Turn that in. You're at tier 9. That's the end game. I'm going to move over to my sandbox save to show you my research and development lab and how to plan out all the steps for completing the Soul Relic. In February of 2026, the developers added Sandbox mode. This is a creative space. There's no resource costs, but you also don't get achievements for being in here. I use this save as a place to come up with ideas, socialize those on the live stream, and really plan out the next steps for tier 9. One of the ways I took advantage of the sandbox was planning out all the dispatch portals that I would need and the quantity of products that would need to go into those portals. So you can see for bandages, I only had 20 hours per day because my potion belt wasn't fully upgraded. I needed 40 per minute bandages to max out on my bandage dispatch portal. There's an X on it because when we completed that, I marked it with an X. Same with the Gloom Spores, the pocket watches, and the Fertile Catalyst. The other thing a sandbox is handy for, coming up with ideas for cauldrons. You can see a lot of the common resources here: copper powder, black powder, oblivion essence. Thank you, Rolotov, for your recipe there. Impure copper powder, salt, clay, coke, etc. It allows us to fill cauldrons with different recipes, see what their outputs will be, see their heat components, come up with the math, and then remember what we chose in this little Cauldron library. As for the soul, I took each component required to build one. I added a sign for that component, and then I looked and saw what dependencies existed, what resources did I need to gather, how much money did I need, what order should I build these components in, and so that's what I want to cover right now. For the Mercury, I already had turquoise, so I knocked that off the list. For the other gems, Malachite, we're using lavender, gloom spore, and copper coins. We already have the gloom spores because we're dispatching them. For topaz, it was lavender, impure copper, and silver coins. And again, we already have the impure copper powder because we're making bronze. For the obsidian, I decided to use meteors. And if I ground up 5 of them, I would have more than enough obsidian to make the Mercury. For lapis lazuli, we're using panacea potions, fertile catalyst, and small wooden gears. You could also use flax or something else if you don't want to use small wooden gears, but I had tons of them. And then for the quicksilver, I knew we needed 1,000 quicksilver, which means we need 100 silver and 100 vitality essence. So for the silver powder, I used gentian flowers, gentian nectar, and silver coins. And for the vitality essence, I actually ended up just stealing it from my fertile catalyst machines. Once we had all this in play, I built these little blueprints that could be brought into the main save that reminded me how much quicksilver I need, how much crude silver powder do I need, how much vitality essence that I need, where am I going to get it from, and color codes telling me what to put in each box. The black is for the fuel, going to the cauldrons at the bottom. Have this already ready with the recipe loaded into it, so I can just copy this, bring it into my save, and then follow the instructions. Same for Stardust, which we're using Blast Potion, Growth Potion, and Fertile Catalyst, along with Fertile Catalyst, Unstable Catalyst, and Silver Coins. Because sometimes I'd be a little low on Blast Potions, and I'd want an alternative to keep the Stardust rolling. For the Fairy Dust, you don't get a choice on that. You need an Arcane Processor, and that requires Chamomile Powder, Gentian Powder, and World Tree Leaves. And then for the last 2, I went ahead and built these blueprints, and I even reminded myself to steal the Gloom Spores and steal the Impure Copper Powder. For the Luna, we already have the basic ingots, so I just reminded myself that we'll need 100 silver ingots and 100 gold ingots. For the moon tiers, I just did a little bit of math. If we need 75 moon tiers and it's 24 stardust per, that means we need 1800 stardust without any kind of skill points. And then for my stardust, again, there's the recipes for those. And then if I have 75 moon tiers and 10 fairy tiers each, I knew I needed 750 fairy tiers. However, because we're using a thermal extractor, it means we only need 1/3 as many fairy dust, so 250 fairy dust. Since we already have a Venus relic made, there's no sign for it. All the other relics that we need are the Mars, the Saturn, and the Jupiter. For those, I just made signs listing out what I don't have, like I need pulleys, I need salt, I needed bronze rivets, but I already had all the rest. For the shapers, I just made colored boxes and put the boxes into the shapers and hand fed them. There was no need to make any fancy machines. For the perfect diamonds, I'm using a combination of meteorite output, so we're getting 300 shattered crystal and 35 adamant crystal from the meteors, which processes down into about 17 perfect diamonds. For the remaining 8 perfect diamonds, I was using quartz, and I made this little machine here to track how much quartz I would need, how much money I would need to buy the quartz, and a machine to actually do the grinding of the quartz. For the meteors, I made a little filter machine where we're filtering out the stone, we're filtering out the coke, we're filtering out the iron sand, so that everything else that ends up in the box are the gems, the adamant, the shattered crystal, obsidian. For the 5 eternal catalysts, you'll need Philosopher's Stone and Resonant Catalyst. The Philosopher's Stone are easy. That's why I'm grinding up 5 meteorites, is to get the gems to turn into a cauldron so that I could craft the Philosopher's Stone. So I kept a record of that. Plus, we have 50 extra obsidian that we don't need for the Mercury already from grinding up the meteorites, which means I just need to make 25 more to make the 75 Resonant Catalyst because it needs volcanic ash. So I took a formula here of Fertile Catalyst, Growth Potion, and Unstable Catalyst. I knew I needed to make 25 more, and here's my little machine reminding me of that. I pop that in. The little yellow boxes are the inputs, the red box is the output, the black box is the fuel input, and then we need the Fertile Catalyst, Unstable, and Growth Potion for those 25. Last thing on the list, 5 World Tree Cores. That's easy. Nothing else needs World Tree Cores in my save, and I already have a World Tree, so that ended up just being a byproduct that I was collecting anyways. The other thing I tracked was how much money I would need to save, and this is not inclusive of the research cost to unlock a lot of these technologies. This is just the raw cost of buying the components. And so I knew I needed 1,144 silver for the quartz for making perfect diamonds, We need about 228 silver for the Mercury components. A lot of it needed either copper or silver coins. Making the silver and gold ingots for the Luna was another 156 gold. I would need 100 gold for the meteors because it's 20 gold each to generate the Philosopher's Stone and the additional obsidian, which meant at the time I had 160 gold in my pocket. I needed to generate an additional 110 gold worth of profits to pay for all these things. I used kind of like a Jira board or a Kanban board to break the endgame into 6 phases. Phase 1, start grinding the meteorites. In fact, I started grinding 3 of them just to keep my costs relatively low because that's 60 gold. I also started a cauldron for the lapis lazuli. I started an arcane processor for the fairy dust, and I started a pair of cauldrons for the stardust. Once that was completed, we went to phase 2, building out the quicksilver necessary for the mercury, as well as getting the perfect diamonds grinding, starting to trickle in some more quartz until those perfect diamonds were done. Phase 3, get the 25 additional obsidian using a cauldron and build that second row of pocket watches so that I can make sure that my dispatch portals were ready to move to fertile catalyst. Phase 4 was kind of waiting around for dispatch fertile catalysts. I'd keep checking on it in each phase until it was ready, and building out the lesser relics, so that's the Jupiter, the Saturn, and the Mars. Phase 5, we completed the last 2 meteorites, and I went ahead and used a cauldron to create any additional malachite and topaz, as well as finding where my turquoise was hiding in the save. Then the final phase, phase 6, setting up the resonant catalyst, using that to make the eternal catalyst, melting down the silver and gold coins into silver and gold ingots for the Luna, and respecting the brew of moon tears, which I will show you just after this. We're back in the 50-day save. I want to start on the ground floor and show you this little set of boxes over here that I didn't really cover in detail. This is where I was grinding the perfect diamonds. Here's that blueprint that you saw where we ground up quartz, and I kept track of it. Just each time I would buy one, I would increment the number here so I knew how far I was. Because again, there's a lot of things going on when you're playing the 50-day. The less you have to remember in your brain and keep like a mental checklist, the better. So use signs as checklists, use signs to remind yourself of things. Try not to keep it all in your head. Also, here's the meteor boxes. We had 3 grinders set up, making meteors at a time. Here's all the leftover stone, the leftover coke, the leftover iron sand, and then these were the boxes where I accumulated all the gems. This is the cauldron where we turned the gems into philosopher's stones. To the right of my Venus Relic Shaper, we have the Mercury Relic Shaper. This is where I created the Quicksilver, just using the gentian flower, gentian nectar, and silver coins. And again, you can use a little bit of fertile catalyst or some panacea potions to make sure those gentians are rocking and rolling. You can steal the vitality essence from the fertile catalyst. Here's a little machine just hooked up to the sulfuric acid behind the screen here, along with those components. And you want to use exact quantities. Don't just kind of willy-nilly put these products in here. I needed 1,000, which means I built out 100 vitality essence and 100 crude silver powder. That got put into the machine making mercury. It's got like a drop left, a little bit extra. And you can pop in all of the gems that you're going to need. I just hand fed them. I color coded them based on the gem. So we have our turquoise, our lapis, our topaz, our obsidian, and our malachite. Just put that in by hand. For the Luna Shaper, basically the same thing. We hand fed all the ingots. This is actually ready to build a Luna. It just needs the moon tears in order to do it. And all of the ingots are being fed using these boxes. And we're not looking to automate this or set up some big factory. We just need one Luna relic. So we're going to hand feed to build it. The very last step that I did in the game was created the moon tears. To do that, let's grab the stardust. You'll see we only have 784. Technically you need 1800, but that's okay. We're just going to take that on over to the advanced alembic by our Luna Shaper. Open it up. It's ready to roll. It's got the 750 milliliters of fairy tears. Just need the stardust. However, because this is the last step of the game, we have nothing else we need to make or do. We're going to respec. We go to upgrade, reset the points. I'm going to put a few points into factory efficiency just so that I can make my moon tears a little bit quicker. And every other point I'm going to stick into the alchemy skill. This increases the amount of fluid that comes from our extractors and alembics, including the advanced alembic. I'm going to put all these points into it. Hit confirm. Now we can see our alembic skill, our output rather, is 340%, which means we have more stardust than we need. I'll go ahead and load the stardust into the machine. And now, kind of slowly, It'll start to load. We'll put some fuel into the box. And there we go. We start making some moon tears. Making a lot more than the original amount because we have that alembic output skill. That's going to create the moon tears. We have that piping directly into the Luna, and we see it begin its process. And that's it. Sit back, grab a coffee, get some stretching in, enjoy and savor the win. Your Luna will complete, and then you can bring it on over to the Arcane Shaper and finish the Soul Relic. Through the magical powers of editing, the Luna is now done. Let's grab it, bring it on over to our Arcane Shaper, and complete the Soul. Ta-da! It's a great feeling when you get the Soul started up and creating, and it actually builds pretty darn quick. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure having you. In summary, we talked about the strategy for completing the Born with the Talent challenge. We looked at the factory layout and where we placed all our machines. We investigated the skill tree and how we gained experience and assigned those skill points. We looked into fertilizer usage and the way that we can use that to snowball progression to the end of the game. Dispatch profits and how we use those profits. Our sandbox with the research and development lab. And finally, the end game phases. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope to see you in a live stream at some point, and hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.